What is up, ladies and gentlemen, and happy holidays from Blackhouse Vapor Company. My name is Alec, and today I've got a really interesting device review for you guys that I'm super excited for. This is a very small device that has a big hype in the vape market right now, and I'm super excited to break open the box, show you what's inside, and give you my opinions on the Orion by Lost Vape. Let's see if we can get this guy. Yeah, there we go. Perfect.
Are you listening? Damn.
Alright, so first things first, I want to go down up close and personal and show you everything that comes inside of the box with the Orion. The Orion that I have, this particular version, is the Project Sub-Ohm edition of this box. But the only difference that is going to make is the appearance of the box itself and the appearance of the device. It won't affect any of the internal logistics of the device. It's still got the DNA Go in it. It still uses the same pod systems. It just has a different little cover, little insert here, as opposed to the Lost Vape ones, which have a bunch of different options. So let's drop it down up close and personal and take a look at what comes inside of the box, and then I'll bring it up and give you my personal thoughts on the device. I also want to quickly go over some of the features of the DNA Go chip on the device itself, but that shouldn't be too difficult. There really isn't too much to this chip at all. I won't be going over any of the eScribe features. You can plug this guy into eScribe and do some fun things with it, but that would be a separate video entirely of its own. So let's get started on the Orion unboxing. All right, guys, here we are up close and personal with the box that the Orion by Lost Vape comes in. As you can see, pretty standard packaging here. Kind of cool, has a little bit of a texture on the box, which is interesting. But besides that, pretty standard. Everyone now is putting the warnings on their boxes that this product contains nicotine, even though this particular product doesn't contain nicotine in the box. That's just kind of a standard warning label now, mostly to help parents see if their kids have vaping stuff in their house, so the box doesn't just look like a box for any other electronic device, which I get. So on the side of the box here, we've got Replay, which is going to be the function that allows you to use temperature control on the DNA Go chip that's inside of this bad boy, which is awesome. On the other side, we have Orion first pod mod powered by Evolved DNA Go chipset. Super cool stuff. On the back, another massive warning. We have the color scheme. We've got barcode, and then a little bit of relevant information on here. Let me see if I can capture it. It's powered by the DNA Go, obviously, the replay and the boost function, which I will show you. Variable wattage control, I'll also show you that. Those two functions are very easy to enable and to use and to navigate. Stainless steel construction, super cool. I think this pod system is probably the most well-built pod system I've ever used. In terms of just build quality alone, it feels like it's going to hold together better than any other pod system I've used previously. 950 milliamp hour built-in LiPo battery. So they've got a LiPo in there, super efficient with the DNA Go chip that's in here, which is basically just the DNA 40 chip, but repurposed without a screen, making it a little smaller, making it a little bit more of a Go chipset, which makes sense for these pod systems that I'm assuming we will see plenty of them coming out in the near future. Okay, so inside the box itself, we have the device itself. Super cool. It's an ocean scallop, an abalone finish. Super cool, reflective, kind of holographic looking if you get it in the light right. But I really like the look of the device. Black all around the edges, blue buttons to match the blue of the abalone there, and just little tiny inscriptions here which are super clean and nice. Orion on one side, PSO for the Project Sub-Ohm version like I mentioned, and then obviously I think that's going to be your lot number or your actual device serial number, but I'm guessing it's just a lot number on the top there. There's stuff you get in this box. Pretty cool that you get a little lanyard for the device, as well as a little rubber guy. Kind of a bumper as well, which is cool if you're clumsy, if you drop things often, maybe you might want to put this little rubber guy on there immediately, and then a little lanyard, which is always cool, and then a micro USB for charging or for hooking this guy up to eScribe, so that's cool. So on top of everything else I just showed you, it is going to come with these two little pamphlets, the user's manual and the guidance information. I am not really sure what's in this guy right here. Oh, it's all about priming and how to use the replay mode and everything like that. So that's cool, little quick guide, and then a little bit more of an in-depth guide as to how to put pods in and everything like that, but I will show you all this information in just one moment. Okay, so here we have the Orion, and this is without a pod in it. I'm going to show you first things first how to put a pod in and how this little switch up here to lock and unlock the pod works. So I've got a pod right here, it's 0.25 ohm pod that I'm using, and I'm going to go ahead and just throw it in here. So what you want to do is line up the notch on the bottom of the pod with the notch right down here by the Orion symbol, and then pull this switch down and push that pod in. Now the reason I pull the switch down before I push the pod in, you don't necessarily have to, but I think that it will reduce the wear and tear on this switch, so it's probably a good idea just to pull that switch down anytime you're going to be inserting or taking out a pod. So again, same goes for taking a pod out. You're going to do the same thing, pull that switch down and pull the pod out, and it kind of hinges off of that one point with the two little nubs that are on the pod, holding it in place at the bottom, switch holding it in place at the top. In terms of build quality of the pods themselves and how the pods fit into the devices, I've had a little bit of variance in terms of pods fitting properly or having a slight little wiggle, but this pod has a tiny bit of a wiggle and it's barely even noticeable. In contrast to other pod mods that I've used, this is the best fit and finish I've ever felt. Having the pod in there, it doesn't feel like it's going to fly out. It never pops out if you drop it. It's snug in there, and besides just a little bit of tolerance there, it's pretty much perfect. The pods are also designed super well with the fill port at the top, super easy with a thumb screw to easily open and close it, and a nice gasket on the top of that, and your airflow right here, which just has just enough tension to not slide around freely, but it's super easy to adjust on the go, and you can have it all the way open or all the way closed. Can really tailor that airflow to exactly what you want. With this 0.25 ohm coil, I generally keep the airflow wide open, but I've heard good results from both of these pods, whether you use it as a mouth to lung or a straight to lung device. So kind of cool that it works and functions as both. Even with both of these coils, you can kind of do whatever you want with either of them. The tip is not removable. It's not a 510 standard tip. It's glued, or at least kind of semi-secured onto the airflow ring here. And I've actually had a tip fall off once previously, where I think I just dropped it too many times and the tip itself popped out, but I could just pop it back on and it held itself on fairly well, and that wasn't a big deal because the next week I put a new pod in there anyways, and so it didn't matter to me. But let's go over the other features of this mod. So right here we've got the power button. The power button is going to serve two functions, both as the obviously the firing button and the locking button. 5 times clicking this guy will unlock your device, 5 times again will lock your device. This light down here will flash purple if it's locked, and as soon as you unlock it, it will flash purple 4 times and to show you that it is unlocking, and then once you have it unlocked, it'll be whatever fire mode you have will light up down there every time you press the fire button. So that's what this button does. Now this button down here is where people might get a little confused, so I'm going to go over the features here. This is where the DNA chip really comes into play. So if you click it once, you can see what fire mode you're in. White being the lowest mode, blue being the second mode, red being the hottest mode. Now, if you want to enable the replay mode, what you gotta do is you gotta take a puff. After you take a vape from your device, you're gonna wanna press and hold the bottom button. Okay, so you can see there's a green light there now, and that means that we are in replay mode. So whatever the last hit you took off this device was, it's going to try to replicate that hit exactly. So you just gotta press and hold that bottom button after taking a hit for about 3 seconds, and it'll switch over into replay mode, and you'll see the green light appear, meaning that you are in fact in replay mode. Alright guys, so that's all the features of this small little device, and now I wanna bring it back up into FaceTime, give you kind of my thoughts about it overall, my thoughts about anything else I haven't covered down here, and we'll wrap this video up. Alright guys, back up into FaceTime view, and I'm just gonna go over kind of my final thoughts and opinions about this Project Sub-Ohm Orion by Lost Vape. I really like this device. I think it's an awesome step in the right direction for pod devices as a whole. The pods that they sell come in both 0.25 ohm and 0.5 ohm varieties, which means you can have a hotter vape or a more of a mouth to lung, more restricted vape, depending on what you enjoy there the most. In terms of the flavor off of this device and the vapor off this device, I would consider it probably the best that I've gotten from a pod system, or at least the most consistent I've gotten from a pod system. A lot of pod systems, depending on which juice you use, depending on which coil you're using, or just how old the coil is, plenty of different variables, you might get a very varied hit from the device. And with this guy, with the DNA chip in here, consistently regulating it, I have not had any issues. This thing vapes perfectly all the way through until the battery dies. The battery dies very consistently in terms of lasting me most of the day, dying at the same time every day, and I'm vaping this pretty hard, so I would consider this battery life fantastic. If I can get a full day out of it, that means you'll probably get at least 2, maybe 3 days out of it, just depending on how much you're using it. But again, with the pass-through charging that DNA offers as well, you can throw a micro USB in this guy and continue to hit it while it's charging, which is another awesome feature you don't get in a lot of pod devices. You've got pretty much every feature that you'd get on a higher-end DNA 40 or even like a DNA 200 device. You've got all of those features, except for the screen, obviously, in this tiny little device, which is fantastic. That's exactly what we need. We need convenience, but we also need consistency and great build quality, and I think this device gives us all of that. I've been using this device now for about a month. I've gone through a few coils. I've learned that it does take a little bit to prime these coils, especially if you're using a thicker juice. You want to make sure that they're primed well. At least leave it sitting for about 5 minutes if you're using a thick juice. If you're using like a 50-50, 2-3 minutes and then some good dry pulls on it, hopefully you'll have a perfectly primed coil at that point and you can use it no problem. But just to keep in mind, these coils do take a little bit longer to prime. They are kind of more like an RDA or an RTA style coil in that they're bigger wraps. The cotton is really stuffed in there, and it's functioning like an RTA in that the cotton is in the juice side of the tank and then goes through a wall, and then the coil is on the other side and the cotton goes through the coil there. So it functions kind of like an RTA. I would definitely say the one downside I have, if any, would be that if you hold it this direction when you're vaping it with the tip up and the button facing down, that way your coil can kind of dry out because the juice will kind of separate from the cotton there, but not a huge deal and definitely not super noticeable unless you're just like chain vaping it the wrong direction. Then you'll start to notice maybe a burnt hit or two. Price wise on this vape, is it going to be worth it? Is it going to be worth that kind of $80 to $90 range? My personal opinion is yes, and I'll explain why. You can get a Phix or a Juul for in that kind of $30 to $40 range if you get the full kits. But the problem with both of those devices is that they are a little bit cheaper, the manufacturing quality isn't quite there, and you don't get the customer support and the kind of fan following that you get with all these DNA and especially these Lost Vape DNA devices. Lost Vape knows how to make a great device, and they haven't forgotten how to do that on this pod system. They have put every ounce of their typical Lost Vape build quality into this device, and so I truly do think it's worth that price, because you're going to be buying 2 or 3 of those smaller Juul or Phix devices to equal the lifespan of one of these devices. If that, this device could last you, it could be the only device you need. If you start on this guy, it's definitely one of those devices that is super, super versatile and super, super well built, and I think that because of that, it merits that price tag, and I think it's worth that price regardless. But definitely something to keep in mind. If you're on a budget, this probably isn't the device for you. You'd probably want to go for something like the Phix or the Juul, because those devices are a little bit more budget friendly. But if you're willing to dish out 3 times as much as you'd spend on a Phix for a device that's 1,000 times better, that's my opinion, I would go for this guy. It's absolutely the pod system to go for right now. And I really hope that we start seeing a bunch of other DNA chip pod systems coming out, but for now, Lost Vape has this market locked down. If you're looking for any type of pod system, this has got to be in your considerations, because it's one of those that it just is astounding. They're pushing the vape market forward, and I think they're doing a great job with all their products. Another reason that I would go for this over a Phix or a Juul is obviously you can refill this. You can put whatever juice you want in this. You can put higher milligram juices still if you want to get that Phix or Juul-esque hit. You can still do that with some Nic salts, some 25 or 24 milligram, even 50 milligram Nic salts. You can definitely get that same hit, but you can refill it. You're not going to be paying for individual pods all the time. The pods that come with this guy, they've been lasting me about 2 weeks if I prime it consistently, and that's perfect for me. It's a $4 pod, 2 weeks. just refill it. Awesome. All right, guys, so that's everything I've got for the Orion by Lost Vape. This is the Project Sub-Ohm edition, as I've mentioned. If you have any other questions, just leave them in the comment section down below. If you like this video, go ahead and give it a like, give it a thumbs up, and subscribe to Blackhouse Vape Company's YouTube channel for more videos like this, more juice reviews. Anything I can bring you guys, I will try my darndest. But happy holidays, everyone. I hope that if you are looking at this device, that I've given you enough information to kind of decide for yourself if it's the device for you. But I think it's an awesome device, and definitely consider it. So thanks again for watching, guys. We will see you next time. This is Alec for Blackhouse Vapor Company. Bye.